Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. This is the week that... What are you doing here, Jimmy?
Well, hello, good sir. How are you?
Hello there. Well,
Fancy seeing you here.
fancy meeting you here. What are you doing here in Florida?
I'm in here for the cardboard convention.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very passionate
Wow.
about cardboard. Yeah.
Wow. Have you seen anybody interesting around here?
No, not really. There was a dragon.
A critical dragon?
Hello.
Professor Fireballs.
Professor Fireballs himself is here. Wow. What happened to your hair?
I had to lose weight.
Oh, okay. You had to make weight. Gotcha.
Well, it's the Florida heat turned my ponytail into a squirrel tail.
The humidity will do it every time.
Now, what
Yeah.
this can't turn into is another Malazan discussion.
No, we can't talk about Malazan.
Yeah, we have discussed it to death.
Oh,
Like
God.
that hoser Erikson.
Oh,
he
he's
is kind of a
absolutely
hoser.
terrible.
What a weirdo, huh? Where does he get that stuff?
I don't know. I heard those books are really confusing.
Confusing, yeah. I heard he got all his ideas from Ayn Rand. Can you believe it? Stole everything, right from what was that thing she wrote? Yeah.
He's a scholar.
I can't believe you just said that.
I think that was Atlas Shrugged, actually.
Atlas Shrugged, that's it. Yeah.
Oh my. Oh, hey, Steve.
Well, hello.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, we were just talking about Esselmont.
Just talking about Esselmont, what a hoser.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a hoser.
Well, no argument there.
AP, you're not supposed to giggle.
I can't help it. I have the world's worst poker face.
Yes, this is true. Well, hello everyone. As you can see, there's a few of us hanging out down here in lovely Florida. We're here for the ICFA conference, having a great time, talking about fantasy. I mean, there's all these weird people hanging around talking about fantasy all day long. It does not get better. Trust
Steven
me.
Donaldson?
So we had a chance to chat with Stephen Donaldson, Janny Wirtz, and any number of just lovely people. Lots of academics, writers, great stuff going on down here. And so we thought we would take the opportunity to make a video and share some of this experience with you guys. And so yeah, what do you guys want to talk about? We could talk some Malazan after all, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm never coming to ICFA again. It's been ruined.
Yeah. The booktubers have descended on ICFA.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I thought because Jimmy has now finished the whole series. Obviously, one of the videos that we've been planning to do was to go back. Now that you've finished the series, you know how it ends.
Yeah.
Looking back at Gardens of the Moon, because you're rereading it, but you also can remember a lot of the stuff. So how is Gardens of the Moon being reframed now that you've actually finished the series and you know who the narrator is, you know what the purpose of the entire series is?
So are we doing spoilers? Is it spoilers?
Yeah, we'll do spoilers from
I
this.
can keep it pretty general, though.
Okay, you can do an unspoilerly
Yeah, I can
version
definitely
of
do
that.
without
Okay.
spoilers because you finish the series and you realize that you had a lot of stuff wrong, which is fun, right? You don't get that from a lot of other series. But in the same vein, in some ways, I'm still trying to figure out pieces of the puzzle because trying to keep in mind who are the good guys and who are the bad guys gets very, very muddy quickly, which is kind of how real history and life is too, right? Gardens of the Moon is almost a different book. You know, it's reading me for the information that I have, and it's a lot of fun.
So, I mean, this is one of the points that we make about. But this is one of the points that we make about reader response theory. So you have a text, and the text remains fixed. You have the author, and the author has a certain biographical or historical point in time that they are writing. But you, as a reader, are the one point that is constantly changing and evolving.
Yeah.
So when you finish the Malazan Book of the Fallen, you get revelations about what the ultimate sort of goal was for the entire series. Would that be fair, Steve?
Yeah, I guess.
A slight question.
Yeah.
So the Siege of Pale is such a polarizing event because of what really happened and what were orders, right? Whenever you wrote the Siege of Pale, did you expect it to kind of reverberate through the series? Like, did you know that was going to be such a monumental moment?
I knew it was relevant for the third book.
Okay.
In terms of, but the weird thing is, I mean, the machinations of the Empire are they're backdrop to everything, right? It's more what's happening in the immediate moment.
Yeah.
And then you end up, when there's revelations and people actually start communicating with each other and being honest about it, that's when everything starts to, the conception of how things work at the Siege of Pale, are at that point completely undermined and reversed in a sense. Yeah. So it's, I don't know, I mean, Siege of Pale was just, for me, that's where my original version of the novel started.
Yeah.
Was at the Siege of Pale.
Well, it feels, that's kind of what I felt. I
Yeah.
felt like this is like the monumental moment. This is going to be a catalyst going forward. But it's really fun to see real information start to come out about things.
Yeah.
And I see this even if you have a bunch of friends at like an event like this, and an event happens and you hear from different perspectives. Like, it's a different story from each person.
We all have different stories about what happened to AP.
Yes.
Last night,
Yeah.
There he goes. So I was curious, just as a follow-up to Jimmy's question. So, and you mentioned that originally Siege of Pale was the opening of the book.
Yeah, it was the original.
So what was important for you to do what you did as the book as published? Obviously, it doesn't open with Siege of Pale. You do some other things first.
Yeah.
What was important to do there?
I needed to set up the overall frame because Gardens of the Moon, in the version where it starts with the Siege of Pale, I do not have the full frame of the 10 books in my mind. So that's an early draft, right? It's one novel, get it out, get it done. And then, of course, it got rejected all over the place. So it came back and spent a few years. And so when I went back to revise it, I realized that I wanted to move further back in time and set up the frame for where I was going to be ending the entire series. So I had to follow the steps in so that I could follow the same steps out.
So in that revision, you did know where it was going to go. Wow.
And that would be one of the reasons why prologue of Gardens of the Moon is so important, because of that symbol of the weather vane.
And you want to talk about rereading. That prologue hits different after you finish the series.
And then Gardens of the Moon itself is kind of a prologue to the series.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Because of it tells you, here's what to expect, dear reader, right? In some ways, this is not your average fantasy story. These are some of the things we're going to be doing along the way. I feel like it does that.
Well, yeah, but I didn't feel like I was sort of breaking any massive rules of the fantasy genre. Because Cam and I had broken all those rules while gaming. So it felt familiar to us.
You'd already done it.
We'd already done it. And so then it was just putting it down on the page via typewriter.
But this sort of goes to the whole point that what we sometimes perceive of as rules, they're not rules so much as conventions that have almost become solidified over time, and then you sort of go, oh, but you have to do it this way because it has always been done this way. And yet when you take a step back, you go, no, but why do it that way? Because it's not about applying the conventions to create a more conventional or generic text. It's what can I do with the genre? And the only limitation really on fantasy is an author's imagination. And yet we can all think of a whole list of texts that you go, this is just the same stuff over and over and over again. Because it's obeying conventional rules. So what sometimes feels like the deliberate breaking of rules is merely I'm not going to apply that rule and just see where the genre can take you.
Yeah, you just want something different. At least, I mean, some authors didn't want anything different. They just wanted to, revise the things that they loved when they grew up reading fantasy, and put their own stamp on it, and that's fair enough.
So it wasn't an act of open rebellion necessarily.
No, I never felt anything like that. In fact, it never even occurred to me that using sort of the Dune style structure was in any way unusual. Because I was reading a lot of science fiction anyway, so a lot of that kind of the rules of science fiction struck me as perfectly applicable for fantasy, epic fantasy. And so it never really occurred to me that was in any way unusual.
You will even occasionally hear someone assert that the Malazan Book of Fallen is science fiction.
Really?
I've heard that. Yes,
What?
I've heard that. I don't endorse that necessarily, but I've heard
It's a
people say
splash.
that it's science fiction.
Splash.
So what would you make of that assertion? Hello.
Sorry.
No worries.
Oh, you're good.
No worries.
I have no idea why that would be.
An idea?
Yeah, even a notion.
Huh.
I mean, yeah, I suppose in one sense it's another planet, revolving around a different star.
Uh-huh.
So I guess you could view it that way.
AP, do you have thoughts on that one?
Well, it all depends on how you define science fiction.
Uh-huh.
And that is a perennial discussion
Here we
that we
go.
have at this conference.
Perfect
You have a
discussion.
knack for making these discussions happen.
These discussions happen at this conference, I'm sure. Hello.
Hi. I have a question, and it pertains more to life, if you don't mind answering this. And it's, I hear
When a man and a woman love each other very much, they share a special kind of hug.
I thought it was the hawk or what it was, a stork. Is that it? We're having the talk. So hearing, like, I really enjoy the fact that you're so transparent about your process and how you
Yeah.
publish everything. But my question is, whenever you were getting rejected, whenever you had your first version of Gardens of the Moon, did you ever think this isn't it? Meaning, like, go do something else? Like, how did you stick to molasses? Did you know you had something special? Because I know I struggle, when you're revising for
Yeah.
time and time again, you're just like, am I wasting my time? Like,
Well, I don't know. The weird thing was, by that point, I guess the archaeology work was kind of drying up. Funding was going, and that was happening everywhere. And so, I had the option of possibly going back to university and getting a doctorate, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to do that. Archaeology for me was the field work, and that's what interested me. So I couldn't do archaeology, and every other job I took, I simply hated. And so it was really no choice in the matter. I had to keep writing and keep pushing and getting, because that was the only thing that I actually liked doing.
Huh.
Offices,
I don't understand
they're
that.
awful.
Lucky for us, you hated office jobs.
I really hated offices.
Don't we? Don't we?
Yeah.
Well, but it was always molasses. Like, you didn't think maybe I should try a different
No,
idea?
I mean, my first book was contemporary fiction,
Right.
Yeah.
coming of age novel. So
Right.
there was that kind of, was it going to be in the Can Lit crowd and live off of Canada Council grants as best I could for the rest of my life, or was going to try to reach a much broader audience and right within the genre that I grew up reading and loved.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I enjoy the most.
Yeah, just a lot of perseverance, and it's very respectable.
And I have the impression that it never occurred to you to question, can I say the things I want to say in writing in this genre?
No, I mean, why would it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't imagine that there are, as AP always points out, there aren't any hard and fast rules in what you can write about.
Right.
And so it was just a question then of trying to shoehorn, some serious themes into the fantasy
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And of course, once you started doing that, you realize that you've actually freed yourself up. You can
Right.
tackle all these subjects because you're placing it once removed from our world.
Right.
And so, as long as we don't make the parallels too close, and the inspiration too close to things that are going on or have gone on
Right.
historically here, then anything goes as far as I'm concerned.
So that psychic distance is actually an advantage.
Yeah, yeah. And as long as you're prepared to defend yourself and the choices you make.
Yeah, I think that's one big difference from reading Molasses to some of the other series that I have read and really enjoyed is I feel like you have a very firm grasp on everything you've done. Like, it's very on purpose, and you have good arguments to back up why you did what you did, or why you pose certain questions without getting an answer. Like, I think that's also really awesome.
Yeah. I think I have to think that stuff through before I even choose to do those things, right?
Mhm.
So I need to have a reason for doing it. Otherwise, there's no point in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, Jimmy and I were just talking this morning about
Yep.
different approaches to writing, and we talked about, because of this discussion that you and I and AP had when we did our midway Malazan chat, and we opened that by asking, how do you incorporate themes into your writing? And you had responded by saying, basically, I start with
Yeah.
theme. That's where I start, right?
Yeah, whatever is of primary interest to me, and explore it.
Yeah.
It's not like I have a particular opinion. I just want to explore that aspect of things.
Yeah.
So then,
Ask the questions.
and then that builds the story, because you don't want to just provide one particular ideology, if you want, one particular opinion on a particular theme. You want to actually create characters who are going to come at it from other sides, other angles.
Uh-huh.
And just by the process of doing that, you've filled out your story.
Yeah.
Because you've got these other characters now. And so they're all revolving around these themes. But they're just different approaches. They're different ways of examining the same subject matter.
Huh. And you're doing that all consciously from the beginning? Or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
So in other words, you're thinking about this theme, and then you're thinking about this character that's part of the story, and how does this character relate to what perspective on this theme does this character provide?
And sometimes, how can I take that character who's already present and make what happens to them and what they're experiencing, angle it towards that theme?
Cool.
Because if you think about it, if you have an event, say a siege that is happening, depending on how you investigate that siege, that's the event. But you could have a whole story about a husband and wife trying to survive the siege inside. So you're looking at what a matrimonial bond is like, what a relationship is like. Or you can look at the soldier trying to scale the wall and overcome something. So you build it in that way. But the event itself is not dictating how you explore the theme.
Yeah, and I'm thinking immediately of the Rujistan and some things that happen there later in the series, and we see the perspective of townsfolk, right? Like the normal people, and I love that. I love the zeroing in, and a lot of even hit movies have been about, okay, we know World War II happened, and there was occupation from the Nazis or whatever it might be, but we see a story of a family during that occupation. And I like those kind of like zoom in moments, while also seeing other people with different problems and motivations going through it as well.
Yeah.
But even if you like Saving Private Ryan, the beach scene at the start, the storming of the beach at the start, and so much of that is from the perspective of the soldiers as they are leaving the transport, and then it will cut every once in a while to the German post where they're looking down through the slit with the gun at the people storming the beach, and you have that intercut. Now imagine if you change the percentage of focus, that the majority of the time you were actually with the Germans, and then you only had little tiny snippets from the people. But that would change the entire feel and context of that one scene, even though it's exactly the same event, the same actors doing the same things, the same stunt people, the same explosions. But depending on your narrative focus, you can actually change the feel or the thrust of what you're actually depicting. And
we would, as the viewers, be more inclined to empathize with the Germans. In that case,
you would call it Hunting Private Ryan.
Yeah, Hunting.
Yeah.
I think you've cited that movie as a
absolutely
source of inspiration.
Absolutely.
And that scene
one,
even.
Yeah, that one and Black Hawk Down.
Those
are two. Cam and I would talk about, it'd be great to take everything you got out of the city battle of Black Hawk Down and make it a fantasy setting. And can you do that? So that's when we were talking about our script writing and stuff, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to sort of, bring that sensibility into it, so that it's not what you generally see with fantasy on television. Is just the people spinning around and swinging swords, and weird shit like that. So we wanted to sort of really down, right on the ground. And as realistic as possible. And then when we start writing novels, then that's kind of, what we wanted, what we visualized.
So then to circle back to the prologue, so we've talked about theme and how obviously Erikson was using theme through the series. But if we skip back just to the prologue, because it's not really spoilers to talk about the prologue of the very first book.
No.
But the symbolism of the weather vane sets up a lot of an undercurrent for what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But then the focus on the young parent, the younger Whiskey Jack, and Surly, who is now obviously she goes, no, I'm now Lucine. And when you first read the novel, you don't know the importance of the characters, you don't know who they are, you're saying, oh well, who are these people? But looking at it now, knowing who Whiskey Jack is, knowing who Parent is, that scene has a completely different resonance.
Yep.
Yeah, especially for me, because Ganos is possibly definitely top 3 character for me, like glued to the page, and being able to go back and go, that was the boy from the prologue.
And Fiddler was there too.
And I was
Fiddler
gonna say,
shows up,
and I was gonna say maybe even more so on the reread. I feel like Fiddler, like I almost hold my breath when he comes on the page. And you realize it's him. It's his
And you don't know it, but down in the mouse quarter, Tattersail.
Tattersail's down there.
She's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
She doesn't make an appearance.
Love
Doing
Tattersail.
what will come up later during the dinner scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even at that event in the Mouse Quarter, not only has resonance in Guardians of the Moon, which one of my favorite sequences is the dinner scene that actually revolves around that, but that Imperial Policy has repercussions multiple times through the series as it is explored at different facets.
Especially when Cam took it and ran with it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's curious that something even as simple as knowing who the characters actually are, knowing how important they are in various aspects of the series, changes the feel of that entire sequence.
Yeah, well, it's even like, so if you see someone have like a meltdown at McDonald's, right? You're seeing them at their worst possible moment. You think,
Well, they're McDonald's.
well, they're already down on their luck, folks.
Yeah.
But they seem like a jerk, right? You're like, that guy's a jerk, but you don't know what happened to him before he walked into that McDonald's. But if we zoom out and we go into his head for a little bit, you might have a lot more sympathy for that. So it's very interesting whenever you finally get to see a moment, like whose eyes are you through and what moment is happening, what side are they on, and these are all things that are played with multiple times in the last, and I think make it a more engaging read than a lot of the other stuff I've read.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. This would be writer advice, right? So you've created a scene, and you realize that you can't put everything you want in that scene, or rather, you choose not to put everything you want in that scene. So you get certain character points of views. But once you've created the scene, in your mind, you've got all the other aspects are all there, and they're there to be used later, right? You can bring them up later in your story because you've built the entire scene, so you know what's everything, the full context around it. So it's like putting the riots down in the mouse quarter and knowing that Tattersail is down there, and we haven't met Tattersail yet. The reader hasn't met Tattersail yet, but I certainly have, right? So I know she's down there, and then you come to the Siege of Pale, and who's the point of view? It's Tattersail, but the reader doesn't know Tattersail has any relationship to that prologue at all,
Right.
and that's going to come later.
Much later.
So you build those scenes like completely 360 and in full context, but you don't write it all first time around. You write what's needed for the specifics of that scene.
Yeah.
But the rest is sitting there as, it's almost like notes. People put their notes behind what's being written there. And you can go and mine that later.
You get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness. There's also a weight to that scene after you finish reading the series and you go back and you look at that scene where young Ganos has this ambition to become a soldier and the advice that Whiskey Jack gives, and boy does that resonate a lot.
The whole way through.
Yeah.
And then, when I come back to that parallel in that scene at the end of the series, the answer cannot be the same, can it?
No.
No.
Nor should it be.
Wow.
It's pretty awesome.
It's good
It's
stuff.
really good advice too, because a lot of times, me and Philip were talking about this, you have ideas, but what do they mean? And I think if you dig into your ideas, most of the time you can find a common element of a theme that you were thinking about, that you have maybe a question of, or maybe even a position possibly, but and you can build around those things, and then those ideas become events. Through those events, you can then flesh out all of these characters that were affected by it differently.
Yep.
And not having to do it all at once makes me,
that's the key.
it's almost relieving in a way.
Absolutely.
Because how do you relay all this important information? You don't want to bore the reader. But if you sprinkle it throughout the plot, it's really
And
interesting.
if you do have a position on a theme, use other characters to attack it relentlessly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's great advice too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I actually have things that I have to go and do now.
We have
so-
lunch to go to and people to hear talk and stuff, but
And we'll do these kind of conversations not on camera.
we've been doing this the
Yeah,
entire
pretty much.
time.
Yeah, this has
We've
been
been here. So this is a blast, everyone. Thanks for watching this. We thought we'd just give you a little sense of what we're up to here. Thank you for being willing to come and
Good fun.
Chat with us.
I'm really glad you guys came out.
I am too.
yeah, we
I
are.
am so
We are
glad.
too, right,
Yeah,
Jenny?
we
Yeah.
are.
So yeah, more to come. We might get a couple other videos done
I'm down.
while we're here. I think
My schedule's open.
we have an open schedule. So.
We'll see if we can drag Donaldson.
Oh, that would be
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, that would be epic. So, all right, thanks everyone. Until next time.
Or always keep turning the page.